Hey everyone, it's Karen, and on today's episode, I brought Mike, an author from Instagram. Thank you, Mike, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited. I was so excited when I saw you accept my request, my invitation to be on my podcast, because again, I'm a big book nerd, so any authors I can get on here, I love it. So, all right, as usual, everyone, I have plenty of questions for us to dive straight into. So, Mike, are you ready?
Whenever you are.
All right, perfect. Let's go. First question I have is, how do you find time to write?
So this is a good question because as a someone with a full-time job and kids, married, all that stuff, it is a challenge for sure. The biggest thing that I've found is trying to do as much prep work as possible. I do a lot of note taking on my phone and stuff, and a
Mhm.
lot of, even plotting out whole scenes, writing scenes sometimes, so that when I do have those, little bits of time here and there, kind of early in the day or, on my lunch break, things like that, I can really get into it and it's not just sitting there and staring at a blank page.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, honestly, it's really just for me right now. I would love to say that I have a dedicated, specific time that I write every day, but it's so chaotic in this house that it's just whenever I can find the time, kind of like, fitting it in wherever it fits is what it comes down to.
Yep. Yep, I understand that one. So, because I full-time job and stuff like that, college kid right here. So,
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, it's a full-time job. It really is. Trying to fit in, like you said, whenever it can fit.
What are you studying?
So right now I am doing business administration because I feel like that is the most chameleon degree because business is everywhere.
Yeah.
And plus I want to run my own business one day for all type of like artists in all shapes and forms. So like photography, DJs, authors, models, for everybody. I'm trying to get a building kind of everybody's been calling it kind of like a hub. So trying to get everybody in one location so we can all just be ourselves because yeah, and then I'm gonna do English. My minor is English with an emphasis on creative writing because I'm trying to be
Okay.
an author. And then this fall, I'm actually adding two certificate classes that are somehow gonna add on to my minor. So I'm gonna have four minors: English,
Nice.
creative writing, digital marketing, and just regular marketing. So I'm like, ah, and I'm doing 16 weeks worth of homework in 8 weeks, and then 16 weeks of homework in 4 weeks. So
Okay.
two classes, 8 and 4 weeks on top of each other, plus a full-time worker. So yeah, it's fun.
Sounds like a lot, but I mean, this is a good practice for you to do this podcast and everything. Kind of
Yeah.
dip your toe into that world, right?
Yeah, that's why I was actually trying to bank on with this. I'm like, well, let me get my traction kind of started a little bit. And then since I'm in college, once I graduate next year, hopefully, um, I will have everything set. So I'm excited about it.
Fingers crossed.
Yep. Okay, next question I have is what is the best time of day for you to write?
Well, like I said, it kind of varies just because my schedule is so crazy. But I find I do the best writing either kind of like early in the morning or late at night. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's nobody else around and there's not a lot of
Yep.
distractions. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I would say kind of that those extremes, early or late. I've definitely stayed up super late writing, and I've definitely, gotten up early to try to get some writing in before things get chaotic in the house. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that one. Early in the morning for me is the best time I have any time because by the end of the day, I'm just more out. I don't know how anybody has any energy at the end of the day. I'm like, I want to go to bed.
I think a lot of writers that I've talked to kind of have that same feeling of like I have to do early or late or at some point when there's not a lot else going on. Because
Yeah.
it's hard to get into that flow state and then getting knocked out of it by a screaming child or so phone calls or something like that just really messes up your ability to move through projects for sure.
For sure. I agree. All right. So the next question I have is, how do you know what to write?
I think writing, just like any artistic, pursuit, kind of comes from amalgamation of things. I think most people who are writers or most people who are any kind of artists consume a lot of different art, whether that's, books, TV shows, movies, just anything. But then I think a lot of it also comes from life experiences. I've been writing since I was a teenager, but I will say, like, I think my writing is much stronger now that I'm older and have a family and have kids. I think, and then, have been working for a long time. I think you just sort of, as far as like knowing what to write, it gives you more to draw on, if that makes sense. It definitely gives you more of like a well that you can pull from, as opposed to just sort of like, if you haven't done a lot and you haven't consumed a lot and you haven't seen a lot of things, you're kind of, at least for me, I found I was kind of like mimicking stuff. It was most of the things I wrote when I was a teenager was like Lord of the Rings and but Aragorn had a different haircut or whatever. you know,
Yes.
yeah,
Love Lord of the Rings.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think it just comes from amalgamation of different interests and life experiences. And that sort of all gives you an idea of what you're interested in and then what you would want to write.
I like that answer. I really do. That's nice.
Yeah.
Um, so the next one I have is, how long does it take you to write a book?
So I've finished one book, and the book that I wrote is The Scion Conspiracy, and that took me about a year to finish the first draft, and then the first kind of couple rounds of edits to the point where I could like give it to people and say this is a finished book. So about a year, and then I would say that is not including things like the cover, the formatting, um, a lot of those more technical things. That one from the time I finished the book to the time I actually it was for sale was almost another year.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I started querying my book with like traditional agents after I'd been, it took me about a year to get to that point. So
Yeah.
that answers that question.
Yeah, it does because it does take a lot for you because you got to write the book, how you were saying, and then like the technical side, all the graphics, artworks, and stuff like that. I know both sides of them because so when I was in high school, I went to Votech for I actually have a passport in graphic design, so I know how long it takes on my side to design something for somebody because our teacher pretended us like give us a project or whatever, and yeah. It's a long time because you got to work with people and their fonts. You like this font, do you want that font, or what do you want the picture? Yeah, it's a lot.
Well, and with a book too, another thing is, you're sending it to people to read. So,
Hmm.
you know, best case scenario, you send it to them and they start reading it that day, but most people put it on their list and they don't get to it for a while. So, if
Yeah,
you've got beta readers or whatever, you might have to wait for months before they get it back to you with any kind of feedback at all.
yeah,
Um, so that's a huge part of it too.
yeah. Always gotta wait. I don't like waiting though.
Yeah,
Why can't we just like in Harry Potter get a wand and poof, there it is.
right. That would be the ideal situation for sure.
Yep. All right, the next question I have for you is, what is the most difficult part of writing a book?
I think the most difficult part of writing a book is probably knowing when it's done
Mhm.
because you can edit forever and you're always going to get feedback. The more people you send it to, the more contradictory feedback you're going to get. So, you send it to one person, they'll say, I love it, it's great, it's exactly what I want. You send it to someone else, they'll say it needs to be shorter. You send it to someone else, they say it needs to be longer. So, having that internal, especially for a new author, having that internal feeling of like this book is done, I need to stop messing around with it and move on to the next project
Yeah.
is really challenging and definitely something that I think a lot of people struggle with because you'll see a lot of people, especially if you're in the indie author space on online who have been working on one book for years and years and years and years, and they'll say, "This is my 20th draft of this book," you know, and it's like
Yeah.
it at a point you're like, okay, this is not, you're getting diminishing returns, you know. You need to have a strong sense of what you want this book to be, and you can have input on that from readers and editors and stuff like that, but you don't want to get to the point where you're constantly changing fundamental things about the book and changing the storyline and changing the things that happen, the plot points and stuff. It's more about trying to get to a point where that story is the best that it can be.
Hmm.
And knowing when that is definitely challenging.
Yeah, because you're always like, I want more for yourself to make you look better or whatever, but then you need to stop at a certain point too. So I agree. All right, the next question I have is, did you self-publish or go the traditional publishing route? And
So I
what?
self I self-published. Like I said before, I finished this book and then I queried it with agents for a little bit. But I got a little bit of feedback. A couple of them were liked it, but so I got feedback from a couple agents who said I didn't have any social media presence or didn't have enough social media, which was interesting. Um, so, and when I was doing the querying, I started looking into the self-published world, and I pretty quickly decided that, I mean, I only queried for a few months, and I pretty quickly decided that I really like the idea of kind of being able to present my story in the way that I wanted.
Mhm.
And a lot of the feedback, a lot of the information I got from talking to other authors was, if you're a new author with no following and no whatever, they're not really going to, traditional publishing isn't going to do that much for you. They're not going to put $1 million advertising campaign behind you like they would behind someone like Brandon Sanderson or whoever.
Yeah.
They're basically going to publish your book and say good luck, and they're going to have you do, the marketing and the advertising and all that, and trying to build up a presence on social media and, going on podcasts and stuff. And I mean, they might help you a little, but it's not like back in the day where you just send a manuscript to your publisher
Yeah.
and they do everything for you.
Yep.
Um, the only thing I'll say is, you do have to come out of pocket for things like editing and cover and, ISBN numbers and things like that. But for me, I said I'd rather do that and kind of just retain complete control over my project and have it be what I want it to be. And then, maybe in the future, one day, if I get popular enough, kind of approach the trad publishing world as more of a level playing field and see what they can give me, as opposed to kind of coming to them and saying like, please publish my book for me. I'm a
Yeah.
nobody, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't actually think of that or know about them wanting your social media. I didn't know that was a thing, but that makes sense. Everything's online.
I've
So,
actually talked to a couple of authors who said that they got that feedback from different agents, because I think it's when you think about publishing as a business, every new author they take on, and I understand why they do it, because every new author they take on is kind of a gamble. They're hoping it's going to work out. And if you're just zero presence, zero social media, which I was before I published my book, um, you're very much, they're very much like, I have no idea, I have no guarantees if this is going to work out.
right.
Whereas if you have some sort of following, at least they say, well, at least they have this audience that we can market to built in. So I mean, I
Yeah.
get it. It kind of sucks because as an author, you want to focus on the writing, but
Yeah.
you know, it is what it
Um,
is.
yep. Okay, so the next question I have is how did you get your book deal?
Well, like I said, I self-published, so I didn't get a deal or anything like that. But in terms of the self-publishing thing, it's pretty, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's definitely a lot more uh open and available to people than it would have been 10, 20 years ago. There's a lot of sites and Amazon for all their problems has made it very easy to reach a global audience. And then there's also a lot of aggregator sites like Draft Digital and BookSpy, things like that. And they, you can upload your book there, Ingram Spark, and they'll let you self-publish, and you can do print on demand, and it's available everywhere, all over the United States and all over the world. So it's pretty much just getting your book into the right format and then uploading it, and it's available. You just have the hard part is getting your name out there.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so the next question I have is what important advice would you give first-time authors?
So I think the biggest pieces of advice that I would say for someone who wants to publish a book is focus on finishing a book first. Because a lot of people, like I was saying before, kind of get stuck in that constant revising, constantly starting new projects,
Mhm.
and I know I did that for a long time. I would start a book, I would write some of it, and then I would get distracted and write something else. I didn't get to this phase until I finally decided I'm going to focus on one book and I'm going to finish it. And for a year, that's the only thing I really worked on. And that was I was going to take it seriously, is essentially what it came down to.
Yeah.
And that was probably the biggest, like, transformative thing for me with writing, was really deciding I was going to seriously pursue publishing one book before I got, distracted by something else. Um, I mean, the other piece of advice I would say is, if you're looking at publishing, um, really kind of do your research and decide what you're comfortable with, because, trad publishing, traditional publishing, obviously has its benefits, and then self-publishing has its benefits and drawbacks too. So really do your research and decide what it is that you think will work best for you. If you're the kind of person who is wants to have control over their project and is okay kind of being running your own business, because that's what you're doing as a self-published author. You're the marketer, you're the editor, you're the book formatter, you do everything yourself basically.
Yep.
If that's your personality, then that's probably a good route for you. But if you're the kind of person who's like, I just want to focus on writing and I don't want to do anything else and I don't feel comfortable doing anything else, then in that case, it might be better to just continue to pursue a trad publishing route and, keep querying, keep trying to write to market a little bit more, so you attract agents' attention. Um, but yeah, that's the best piece of advice I can have.
Let's, it's good know. I like it. All right, so next question I have is what inspires you to write?
So like I said, I've been writing since I was a teenager, and I only really started taking it seriously once me and my wife had our first kid when I was in my early 30s.
Hmm.
And then we had our second kid pretty soon after that. And I really started taking it seriously once we had our first kid, because I said, this is something I've wanted to do since I was a kid, since I was a kid myself. And I said, I don't want to be that parent that is, older and says, oh, I never pursued this thing that I wanted to do. So I think that was the biggest driving factor in saying, oh, I really am going to take this seriously and pursue it. Even if it's not successful, at least I gave it a shot, and tried.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing to be able to, at least in my opinion, it's an important thing to be able to look at your kids and say, like, I had this passion for something and I gave it a shot. I did my best.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest reason. I mean, I've been a reader of fantasy and sci-fi and just everything since I was a kid, so I do love reading of all kinds. And so, I've always wanted to write a book, and I thought this it seemed like a good time.
As best time.
Yeah.
And I really liked how you said early on that question before this one about how you were kind of like all over the place, with starting project here, starting project there. That was me too. Like when I was younger in high school, I was just writing, having all these book ideas. So I was just starting one book. I was like, oh, I don't like this book now. And I came up with another idea and I just completely disregard that. So now, as an adult, I have a stack of unfinished books. But I'm like, now, since I'm an adult now, I can actually make the story better than what I planned on it because I remember what I was gonna make the story a few of them into, and now since I'm older, I'm like I think I'm gonna twist it a little bit and make it better. So I like how I can figure out new ways to just make me happy with my books. So
I know exactly where you're coming from. If you look at if you ever got a chance to look at my laptop, I have like all these files, all these folders with all these like books, different book titles and different projects, and each one has about, between two or three and like 20 chapters that I've written, and
yeah.
none of them are finished. So,
Yeah. Well, that we just have a drive now to finish them. We got to finish them.
yeah,
Let's work on
exactly.
this. All right. So the next question I have for you is, when did you first realize you wanted to be a writer? Well, I guess your children.
Well, I wanted to be a writer when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I really, like I said, my dad was really into he got me and my brother into fantasy and sci-fi and stuff. And we read a lot of books and we would pass them back and forth. We started out with a lot of the typical things, Harry Potter, The Hobbit, but also things like Tamora Pierce and Redwall and just, all those typical kids books. And then as we got older, we kind of kept up that thing where we would read things and we would pass them back and forth to each other and say, "Oh, you got to check this book out." And it
Mm-hmm.
that's what it really developed that passion for reading I had as a kid, and I've had it my whole life. Um, so I always really enjoyed reading, and that sort of naturally turned into enjoying writing for me. Um, and I knew I always enjoyed writing. And I think, like you said, it really didn't turn into like I'm going to truly pursue becoming a published author until I had my own kids. And I was like, well, this is something I want to do. So I need to take it seriously and actually give it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. You've been a writer ever since you were little. I feel like if you can't have a passion for when you're little, for me, like that was my passion for writing. I read a lot of books too growing up, and then it kind of turned into, well, if someone else can do it, then I can do it. So
There's
that's my
a
little goal.
there's an author, I don't remember who it was, but he said you should try to read good books, but also bad books, because just as much as a good book can give you inspiration,
Yeah.
reading a bad book can give you inspiration. Say, if they can get published, so can I. And I thought that was pretty funny
I
advice.
mean, that's true. I mean, that's good. That's a good advice. That's good advice. You got to have comparison. So
Yeah.
I like that advice. All right. So the next question I have for you is, what are your favorite books to read?
So I've always been in what I call my personal like trinity of genres, which is fantasy, sci-fi, and horror. Um, and I've always that's kind of always been my typical wheelhouse. But I kind of read a little bit of everything. I like history, I like classics, biographies, like I said, a little bit of everything. But mostly, I would say it's two-thirds in that trinity of fantasy, sci-fi, and horror, and then maybe like one third everything else.
Yeah, I like fantasy too.
Yeah,
That's why I was like, I gotta pick you because you're a fantasy writer. I gotta see what's going on.
yeah.
So
Um, I will say I started out reading, like I think most people do, a lot of epic fantasy and a lot of that kind of stuff. And then as I've gotten older, I've definitely veered more into like the dark fantasy and grim dark and stuff like that. I think as an adult, it kind of hits a little harder. Uh,
yeah,
maybe it hits a little closer to home in some ways, so it's more compelling. That's
yeah,
my book is definitely like dark fantasy, more adult themed, kind of along that. Like I don't know if you're a fan of like Game of Thrones, the show, or anything, but more along
yeah.
those lines. So
Oh,
yeah,
awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I like the Game of Thrones. Okay, so I'm gonna say this. I've never watched a full episode, but I have seen enough to know I like it. I just don't have time to watch TV. So,
I
because
know how that
life
is.
happens. So, okay, the next question I have is, how important are book reviews?
Book reviews are huge. especially as a new author, I mean, you can read the science on it. There's tons of studies, but most people, when they're looking at things, they're shopping, they look at reviews, and they've kind of proven that if you don't have reviews, the chances someone's going to pick up your book or really any product are really slim. So I mean, getting reviews in my opinion and based on what I've seen is kind of make or break for most authors. So anybody who's willing to try give a shot on new authors, especially people with like an unfinished brand new series, is that's huge. It makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Um,
I like book reviews too, because at first, when I was younger, I didn't like them. I didn't understand them, but now I do. They are good for you. Like you said, if you don't have good ones, then no one's going to want to pick up their unfinished book or series. So,
well, it's also like think about the way that you shop. I mean, everybody kind of does. I feel like most people do the same thing. They look at the product and then they go down and the first thing they do is look at the reviews and they say, oh, if it's got zero reviews, the
yeah.
chances you're gonna take a chance on it are so much slimmer.
Yeah.
Conversely, they also say that if you have nothing but 5-star reviews, people don't trust it.
Oh, that's
So
true too.
I do think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh,
I
this is
didn't
all
even
people.
think of that.
Yeah, this is all people that the guy probably personally knows.
Yeah. Okay, so next question I have is what is your favorite part of being a writer?
I mean, I think just, doing something creative and having that outlet for creative expression. I love building worlds and, building interesting, fun characters that people connect with. And I think getting feedback from people is really fun and interesting. Seeing how people take your story in ways that you didn't expect or seeing it connect with people is obviously huge. It's a really fun experience and really rewarding. But I mean, just the act of writing itself and creating a story and having this whole thing that you've built and you can point to. I mean, I don't want to say a lot of people say they want to be a writer. Um, and now that I have finished a book, I talk to so many people and they say, "Oh, I have a story idea. I want to be a writer. I want to do these things." And kind of getting to say, "Oh, I have finished a book. It's out there. People have read it. They liked it." It's cool. It's a really cool experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really long-winded answer is to say I enjoy the whole process. I enjoy writing. I enjoy hearing the feedback. I enjoy talking to people about it. It's all been really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm ready for whenever I can get, because my problem is I need an editor. Like I have one book for sure done, no matter what. But I
Yeah.
just need, because I believe everything's perfect. I know it's not, but it's my stuff, so it's perfect. Um, but I need an editor, so and I'm getting there because I want to feel all that little feelings like you just said about people like I can say I have a book published, and then I can say yeah, people have read it and they love it or whatever, or they don't
Yeah.
like it and they give me feedback so I can make it better for the next book or whatever. So I want to feel all those feelings. I'm excited. I'm so ready.
If you're looking for editors, I mean, there's a lot of good writing groups that you can exchange books with other authors.
Oh,
That's a huge thing, especially if you're like on a budget, like most of us are, I would say.
yep.
Um, that's a huge thing that helps a lot. Just getting general feedback from other authors is huge. It makes a big difference in your writing, I think.
Oh, well, thanks for that idea because I didn't even think of that. I'm just so stuck on like I've got a few websites where I have to like go buy the editor or whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So, I have a couple more questions and then we're going to wrap up because we are running out of time a little bit. So, all right. What makes a great story?
I think for me, I think a great story is one that connects with people.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it does that through the characters or the storyline itself or the themes and the plot, I think the biggest thing for a story isn't so much any one thing, but that readers feel a strong connection to it. Because when you talk about great stories, like some of the greatest stories of all time, which you would consider classics or whatever, things that everybody gets recommended, people don't talk about it in like this story has so much amazing, plot structure or anything like that, or the technical aspects. It's more of it hit me in this way and it stuck with me because of this, because I felt it and it connected to me. So I think when you're writing a story, the biggest thing you have to think about if you want it to really land for people is how it's going to connect to them personally, how it's going to connect to their lives, what the feelings that you're trying to elicit from them.
Yep, I like that because I feel the same way. That's why I started writing. Well, not mainly because of that, but a little bit is if you can't connect with your audience, then you're not going to have an audience. Like that's how I feel kind of. So you got to
Yeah,
let them tell you what they like. So I don't know. That's how I feel.
yeah, definitely.
So the next question is, what's the most surprising thing you learned while writing your book?
That's a tough one. I think one of the most surprising things that I've learned from writing in general, is just how much work goes into writing that is not writing.
Hmm.
Um, like we were talking about earlier, editing and
Hmm.
formatting and maintaining a website and doing a newsletter and uploading things and dealing with all the goblins that come with technology and things like that, and marketing,
Hmm.
advertising. It's just writing the book is 50% of it. Uh, and there's so much that isn't writing the book. Um, and that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before with advice for new authors is, you need to finish the book because that's only the first step.
Hmm.
Um, and then, everything else is a huge chunk of it. And, you have to really commit to it being almost like a business that you're running, as
Yeah.
opposed to just saying, because you can. I tell this to a lot of people. You can always write for yourself. You can write for your friends and your family and just send it to people. Um, Publishing a book is a different thing than just writing.
Yeah. That is true. I didn't think of it that way. I mean, I did a little bit, but you expanded it a little bit, so I like that.
Yeah, because when I started, I just said I just want to write a book, and then I finished it. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to this.
Right. Sometimes I feel like writers believe that writing is the easier part than everything else afterwards. Because then they, like you said, they get a little bit scared. Because again, for me, I'm not scared because I know what's going to come, the graphics, the photo, the photography, all that. Because I started that when I was in high school, and now I'm doing the book part or the writing and everything as an adult a little bit more. So yeah. I I understand. I totally get it. It is a big but it's a mess. It's a bunch of stuff you got to
Yeah,
do.
for sure,
So, okay, I got two more questions for you and then we can wrap up really quick.
for sure, no problem.
Alrighty. So, how do you handle writer's block?
Um, Writer's block is hard because when you say writer's block, I think people think of not being able to write. And
Yeah.
I don't typically feel like I have that problem. What
Hmm.
I find is I hit roadblocks in the story that I'm working on. And I'm not like I feel like I can't move past that specific scene or chapter because I just don't know where I'm going or I don't know how to resolve something. So
Hmm.
what I typically do is I'll jump around to another part in the same project. So another scene, another
Yeah.
thing. So I'm not starting a new project or jumping completely off. I'm still keeping my focus on this and I'm still making progress,
Right.
but I'm not sitting and there staring at a blank page all day and not not moving forward, because
Yeah.
that's when you really just kind of get stuck and you're like, I don't know what to do. And I've spent the last three writing sessions writing and then deleting and writing and deleting. So
Yeah.
I think giving yourself the freedom, for me, I think giving myself the freedom to move around and tackle different things, go to a different character's perspective for instance, that really helps you kind of stay focused on the project, but also keep moving forward. And I think when you come back to that scene later or that thing that you're struggling with, if you've taken some time off from it, you can see it with fresh eyes, and it really helps, especially if you've moved further on in the story. If you've jumped ahead, that can kind of give you a lot more clarity as to what's going on.
Yeah, I do like that, the jumping ahead part. I have really bad writer's block, I thought when I was younger, but yeah, I found out I don't really. I just need to keep moving forward. And like you said, find a different part of the story. So, all right, if you didn't write, what would you do for a living? I always like to
Well,
throw that little fun question in there.
I have been a firefighter for almost 15 years now.
Oh, nice.
That was kind of my other big thing that I wanted to do as a kid, and I started that when I was in my early 20s. So, I mean, that's my other career choice. Um, I'm kind of doing both things that I wanted to do.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. I'm glad.
Yeah,
And thank you for your service. I appreciate it
thank
because
you.
even though, you're not in my state, I still appreciate you all because and little quick thing, in high school we had to pick who our heroes were. And I did a firefighter because to me, I feel like everybody adores police officers and nurses, which don't get me wrong. Nurses got to go through a lot, and police officers do. I just feel like you all go through a lot more than police officers. Like you got to run into burning buildings. So I did a firefighter. So that's how dedicated I am to firefighters. Like
Well, that's
again,
really nice of you to say. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you as a firefighter, but everybody has their own opinions.
yeah.
But no, yeah, that's really nice. That's really nice of you to say. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, all right. But again, I just wanted to say thank you for hopping on. And you don't have your book laying around anywhere, do you?
I do. I have a copy right
Awesome.
here.
Let's show this really quick and then I will wrap up.
For sure. It's called The Scion Conspiracy. It's dark fantasy. It's all centered around a heist that happens kind of early on in the book, kind of in the first few chapters, and it sets off this whole investigation into this web of political intrigue and violence that's going on around this continent. And it's all set, it's multi point of view. It's all set during an age of exploration, which is kind of a time period that I'd never seen fantasy set in before. Think early colonial days of the Americas getting colonized, that setting.
Yep.
Um, yeah, but
That
uh,
sounds
but yeah,
fun.
it's the first in the series. I should be coming out with. So I have a prequel novella that will be for free on my website for people who subscribe to my newsletter. That should be coming out in the next couple months, and then I should be releasing the sequel to the first book um, in the fall, late fall to maybe early next year, depending on how long everything takes. Um, but yeah, that's what I got going on. So, me and two other indie authors are starting a podcast. It's called Pen and Dragon. It'll be available on YouTube and Spotify, all the places. The first episode is tomorrow, Monday at 9 p.m. It'll be every other Monday. And it's just kind of talking about life as an indie author and recent events, news, things like that. There'll be some interviews, some things like, just kind of messing around talking about indie stuff about the business. We're playing it should be a lot of fun, judging based on how some of the early conversations have gone.
Yeah,
But
I actually saw that design of for tomorrow on your page, and I really like that. The had a little, I think the ink pen or the ink dropper or whatever for within the lettering. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like that's what to be for me as an artist, that's what grabs me is pictures. So if I like the design of the whatever book cover or whatever, that's what draws me into it. So I really like whoever designed that. Just
really,
wanted to throw that out.
Isaac is one of the other hosts, Isaac Anderson. He's an author, but he's also an artist, and he did a great job. Is
Yeah.
re It's a really good design.
So, all right. Well, thank you for letting us all know that because it's really nice to see what everybody has new projects ahead of them instead of just, oh, well, this is what I have done. And then we need a little surprise. Give us a little something. So, again, thank you, Mike, for being on my podcast. I truly appreciate the support and everything. And I'm so glad that you accepted my request so that everybody else could learn everything about you and your book and what's up to come next. All
Thank you for having
right.
me. It was a good
You are welcome. And thank you again. All right. Thanks everybody for joining and have a good rest of your day. Bye.